There is a war you do not see. It is not fought with armies marching across open fields. It is a cancer on the soul of the Middle East, a quiet, patient, and utterly ruthless conflict waged in the shadows. It is a war of whispers and secrets, of assassins who move like ghosts and scientists who build apocalypse in sterile underground laboratories. It is a war between two nations bound by a hatred so profound it has become a form of intimacy. This is the story of that war, the story of Iran and Israel. First, understand the board. One player is a giant, a Goliath of sand and stone called Iran. It is a nation sprawling over 1.5 million square kilometers, a land of impossible mountains that claw at the sky, the Zagros Range, a fortress wall to the west, a place of vast, punishing deserts in its center where the sun kills and secrets can be buried forever. To the north, the Caspian Sea bleeds oil and gas. To the south, the Persian Gulf narrows into a choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of the world's lifeblood passes through that narrow channel. Control it, and you have a hand on the world's throat. Iran is surrounded by rivals: Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan. It is a grand crossroads, and the traffic is often violent. Its 85 million people are overwhelmingly Shia Muslim, a fact that has carved its history in blood and faith. This vastness is its armor. It has endless space to hide its armies, to scatter its missile bases, to bury its deepest ambitions deep within the rock of its mountains. The other player is a sliver of land on the Mediterranean coast, a nation called Israel. It is impossibly small, barely 20,000 square kilometers, a place smaller than a single province in its rival's empire. But do not mistake its size for weakness. Israel is a regional superpower, a porcupine bristling with the most advanced technology on Earth. Its coastal cities, like the bustling tech hub of Tel Aviv, are vibrant and modern. Its port of Haifa is a gateway to the world. To the north, the Golan Heights offer a beautiful but brutally strategic vantage point. Its southern half is a desert, a place of stark beauty that hides its most lethal military secrets. It shares a border with the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth, a fitting metaphor for the geopolitical gravity of its existence. Its neighbors are not friends. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt. It is a nation of 10 million, a Jewish state in a sea of hostility. As they say in the halls of its intelligence service, the Mossad, it is a lone fighter in a back alley against a gang, alone against the mafia. This disparity in size defines their dance of death. Iran, the giant, can absorb a blow. It can lose a base, an entire city even, and the nation endures. For Israel, the tiny sliver, there is no room for error. A single successful missile strike on Tel Aviv is not a setback. It is a catastrophe. This reality keeps the entire nation in a perpetual state of high alert, a coiled spring of anxiety and aggression. Iran is rich. It sits on oceans of oil and gas, consistently ranked in the top 5 globally. This black gold funds its military, its revolutionary guards, and its network of allies across the region. Israel, for most of its history, had nothing. It was a nation built on sand and ingenuity. Only recently has it discovered significant offshore gas fields, a lifeline that has lessened its energy dependence. But its true resource is not under the ground. It is inside the minds of its people. Israel invests everything in technology. It is a nation of startups and Nobel laureates, and it has used this brainpower to build the most sophisticated shield in the world. A layered defense system culminating in the Iron Dome, a guardian angel of circuits and rockets that swats enemy projectiles out of the sky. The distance between their capitals, Tehran and Jerusalem, is about 1,500 kilometers as the crow flies, a meaningless distance in the age of ballistic missiles and silent high-altitude drones. But they share no border. This is the crucial, terrifying fact of their conflict. They cannot meet on a battlefield. Every confrontation is indirect. A missile launched over a third country, a cyber attack that travels through undersea cables. A proxy army funded and trained to bleed the enemy dry. This is a war fought by remote control, a long-distance assassination, but it was not always this way. There was a time before the darkness fell when they were friends. Before 1979, Iran, under the Shah, was one of the first Muslim nations to recognize the new state of Israel. They were brothers in arms, united against a common enemy. The Arab nationalist states, led by Egypt's Nasser, wanted to wipe Israel off the map and dominate the region. Iran, a Persian nation, not an Arab one, saw this as a threat, so they formed an alliance of convenience. Israel bought Iranian oil. Iran bought Israeli weapons and technology. They were both firm allies of the United States. They saw the world in the same way, but this friendship was a thin veneer. Beneath the surface, the religious clerics in Iran seethed. They saw the Shah as a puppet of the West and Israel as a blasphemy, an occupier of holy Palestinian land. The people listened to these whispers. Then came 1979. The year the world changed. The Shah's decadent pro-Western dynasty was swept away by a tidal wave of revolution. The frail, black-turbaned Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile and seized power. He did not just create a new government. He forged a new reality. He declared the United States to be the great Satan, the ultimate source of evil in the world, and Israel, its closest ally in the region, became the little Satan, a cancer that must be cut out. Anti-Semitism and a burning hatred for Israel became the bedrock of the new Islamic Republic's foreign policy. It was a way for Iran to cast itself as the true hero of the Islamic world, the defender of the oppressed. The change was immediate and absolute. Iran severed all diplomatic ties. The Israeli embassy in Tehran was shut down. Khomeini personally handed the keys to the Palestinian Liberation Organization. The building that once symbolized friendship now symbolized a holy war. Iran began to openly fund and arm Palestinian groups calling for the complete liberation of Jerusalem. The two nations were now formally and irrevocably enemies. The hatred was so pure, so absolute, that what happened next was almost unthinkable. During the brutal 8-year war between Iran and Iraq, when Saddam Hussein's armies poured across the border, Israel secretly sold weapons to Iran. It was a cold, pragmatic calculation. Saddam's Iraq was a mortal enemy to both of them. It was a threat that had to be contained. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, even if he is also my enemy. This bizarre, temporary alliance did nothing to change the fundamental truth. Once the war with Iraq was over, Iran's gaze returned to its true foe, the little Satan. From the 1980s onward, Iran began to weave a web, a network of proxy armies and allied states designed to encircle and strangle Israel. They called it the Axis of Resistance. In Lebanon, they funded and trained a Shia militia into a formidable army, Hezbollah, the Party of God. Hezbollah became a persistent, bleeding wound in Israel's northern border, launching rockets, digging tunnels, and engaging in a full-scale war in 2006. In Gaza, Iran poured money and weapons into the hands of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. It propped up the brutal Assad regime in Syria, turning the country into a land bridge to move men and material closer to Israel's borders. These were not just allies. They were Iran's extended arms, its daggers pointed at Israel's heart. For Israel, it was a waking nightmare. A feeling of being constantly besieged, surrounded by fanatics who chanted death to Israel and were armed by a powerful state sponsor. Then, in the 2000s, the shadow war entered a new, terrifying phase. The specter of nuclear apocalypse. Iran's nuclear program, once a peaceful project under the Shah, was now a source of global terror. Israel, widely believed to possess its own secret arsenal of nuclear weapons, could not and would not tolerate a nuclear-armed Iran. An Iranian bomb was not a strategic problem, it was an existential threat. Iranian leaders had openly spoken of wiping Israel from the map, for a nation born from the ashes of the Holocaust. These were not empty words. They were a promise. This became Israel's ultimate red line. Israel's response was as ruthless as it was secret. It unleashed the Mossad. A wave of mysterious deaths began to plague Iran's nuclear program. Scientists were blown up by car bombs. They were gunned down on their way to work by assassins on motorcycles. Their families watched them die. These were not random acts of violence. They were precise, surgical strikes designed to cripple the program by eliminating its most brilliant minds. Simultaneously, a new form of warfare was unleashed. A digital ghost was inserted into Iran's most secure nuclear facility at Natanz. A computer virus of unimaginable complexity, later named Stuxnet, allegedly a joint US-Israeli creation, tore through the Iranian systems. It secretly manipulated the centrifuges that enrich uranium, causing them to spin out of control and destroy themselves, all while reporting to the Iranian engineers that everything was normal. It was a silent, invisible sabotage of unprecedented genius. Iran did not back down. For every scientist killed, another took his place. For every centrifuge destroyed, they built 1,000 more, faster and more efficient. They accelerated their ballistic missile program, building rockets capable of reaching every corner of Israel. They poured more money into Hezbollah and Hamas. The shadow war escalated. A cycle of attack and retaliation played out in the dark, with the fate of the world hanging in the balance. The reasons for this endless war are a toxic brew of ideology, religion, and a brutal struggle for power. For the Islamic Republic of Iran, opposition to Israel is a religious duty, a core pillar of its revolutionary identity. It sees Israel as an illegitimate state, a dagger of Western imperialism plunged into the heart of the Muslim world. For Israel, Iran is a new Persia, an expansionist empire led by religious fanatics bent on a new genocide. They are fire and water. Their fundamental beliefs leave no room for compromise. They are also rivals for the throne of the Middle East. Both nations seek to be the dominant power. Iran builds its axis of resistance. Israel, in turn, builds its own alliances. It strengthens its bond with its ultimate patron, the United States, which provides billions in military aid every year. It forges new, once unthinkable friendships with Arab nations like the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, countries that fear Iran's power even more than they dislike Israel. Even Saudi Arabia, the guardian of Sunni Islam, has begun a quiet dance with the Jewish state, drawn together by their shared hatred of Tehran. The open wound of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict provides the endless fuel for this fire. For Iran, it is the perfect justification for its aggression. It paints itself as the noble protector of the oppressed Palestinians. For Israel, this support is proof of Iran's true intentions: to use the Palestinians as pawns in its grander scheme to destroy Israel, and looming over it all are the great powers. The United States stands firmly behind Israel. Russia and China stand with Iran, selling them weapons and providing diplomatic cover. The conflict between these two small nations is not their own. It is a proxy war on a global chessboard. It is a stage where the new Cold War between America and its rivals is played out. This is why the war will not end, not in our lifetimes. The hatred is too deep. The stakes are too high. The machinery of conflict has been running for too long. It is a self-perpetuating engine of death. Now, forget the grand strategy, forget the politics. The true horror of this war lies in the lives it consumes, the men and women who fight it, the ones who live in the shadows. His name was Ari Ben-Zion. He was a Qassam for the Mossad, a field officer. He was 42 years old, but looked 50. His eyes were the color of a winter sky over the Mediterranean, and they held the permanent weariness of a man who had seen too much. He lived in a modest apartment in Tel Aviv, a few blocks from the beach. He drove a used Subaru. To his neighbors, he was a mid-level manager at a tech import-export company. A boring, respectable, forgettable man. It was a perfect cover. Ari was not a killer, not in the way you might think. He was a planner, a recruiter, a handler. He found the weaknesses in people: greed, pride, revenge, fear. He would find a disgruntled engineer in an Iranian missile factory, a corrupt official in the Revolutionary Guard, and he would turn them. He would nurture them, pay them, and use them until they were no longer useful. Then he would cut them loose and disappear. He was a master of human chess. His current operation was codenamed Damocles. The target was Dr. Kian Rostami, the chief physicist at Iran's secret Fordow fuel enrichment plant, the one buried deep under a mountain near the holy city of Qom. Rostami was a genius. He had solved a critical problem with centrifuge design that had allowed Iran to accelerate its uranium enrichment to near weapons-grade levels. Rostami had to be stopped, but a direct hit was too risky. Fordow was too deep, too well defended, and killing Rostami in Iran was becoming too difficult. The Iranian counterintelligence, the VVAC, was getting better. They had learned from their mistakes. The last 3 assassination attempts on other scientists had failed. 1 Mossad team had been captured. They were never heard from again. So Ari had devised a new plan, a psychological one. He wasn't going to kill Rostami. He was going to break him. He was going to turn the entire Iranian security state against its own prized asset. He was going to frame Dr. Rostami as a traitor. The plan began in Baku, Azerbaijan, a city of oil and spies right on Iran's northern border. Ari's team had identified a junior officer in the Iranian consulate, a man with a gambling problem and expensive tastes. Over a period of 6 months, they had groomed him. First, a friendly stranger at a casino helped him win. Then, a beautiful woman paid attention to him. Soon, he was in their debt. He was given a simple task: to switch a briefcase. The briefcase contained what appeared to be Mossad operational plans, but it was a fake. Nested inside the false documents, on a microdot so small it was nearly invisible, was a single piece of information: a complex physics equation. An equation that only a handful of people in the world would understand. It was the exact solution to the centrifuge problem that Dr. Rostami had solved. The package also contained bank account details for a shell corporation in Switzerland, showing a deposit of $2 million. The account was in the name of Rostami's wife. The compromised Iranian officer made the switch. The briefcase with the poison pill was sent back to Tehran in the diplomatic pouch. Now, all Ari had to do was wait. Wait for the paranoia of the Iranian regime to do his work for him. Thousands of kilometers away, in a sterile, windowless office deep within the labyrinthine headquarters of the Ministry of Intelligence, a man named Asghar Farhadi read the report. Farhadi was the head of counter-espionage. He was a gaunt, ascetic man who had been a student revolutionary in 1979. He had personally helped storm the American embassy. His hatred for the great Satan and the little Satan was not political, it was his religion. He read the report from Baku, the story of the compromised officer. He saw the faked Mossad plans and dismissed them as amateurish. But his analyst, a young computer expert, had found the microdot. And when the equation was decoded, Farhadi felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He recognized the elegant, lethal simplicity of the physics. It was Rostami's work. It was the key to their most precious secret.